video is going to be all about my face powders. I get questions about face powders all the time, so I thought it would just be the easiest if I do a collective video showing you all my face powders and talking you through them. Just for reference, I do have oily skin. It's more on the combination side in the fall and winter, but it's generally combination oily. So I'm going to start with the only loose powder that I own, and it's by Chanel. It's the Poudre Universelle Libre. Wow, that was the worst French-English accent thing. Just try to forget I ever said that. Natural Finish Loose Powder by Chanel. I have this in the shade 30 Natural Translucent 2, which is a confusing name because does it have a color? Is it translucent? What? It actually does have a color, so I would not call this a translucent powder. And it's not extremely pigmented. It does not add coverage, but you do see the powder pigment on the skin. I have had this for over 2 years now, and I'm still, I think just now I'm halfway through it. So even though it is an expensive powder, you do get a lot of it, and it's a very nice powder, but it does not do anything in terms of oil control. So just keep that in mind. If you're extremely oily, you might want to skip this, but I do like it. My favorite way of applying it is with a damp beauty blender sponge, and I find that when I use it that way, it really does smooth out the skin texture, and it sets the makeup in a way that just looks really flawless, but it does look like you have makeup on. I kind of saved this for more glamorous special occasions. I also have a little jar of Laura Mercier Secret Brightening Powder. This is what I use to set my under eye area. When you look at the powder straight up, it does have very fine shimmer in it, but it really does not translate on the skin. Even though it's called a brightening powder, I don't find that it actually does that much brightening, but it is a nice finely milled powder to use under the eyes. So I like it. I'm not crazy about it. I probably won't repurchase it, but it takes a long time to use this up. You only need a tiny bit. It's a pain in the butt because it does not have a sifter, so it gets all over the place. It's a nightmare to travel with. So what I do is I usually just take whatever powder is left on the lid. I just use that on a fluffy brush, and then I apply it underneath my eyes. But it does do a nice job at keeping under eye concealer in place without making it look cakey or dry or anything like that. Moving on to the good stuff, I definitely prefer pressed powders to loose powders, and this is the NARS Translucent Light Reflecting Setting Powder Pressed. They also make a loose version of this, and I'm almost out of it, but as you can see, this does not look very appetizing. Not that makeup should look appetizing, but this looks absolutely disgusting once you hit pan, because the pan is not a normal flat pan. It's got like this plastic webbing at the bottom that holds the product together. If you've ever touched this powder, you will know that it's a very strange texture. It's not powdery at all. It does have a slight sheen to it when you swatch it on the back of your hand, but when you're applying this with a powder brush, it just sets the makeup without disturbing the actual finish. So you can use this if you want a more dewy glow. You can use this to set a dewier foundation. It will keep you looking dewy and glowy, but it takes the edge off just a little bit so you don't look greasy. So this is the powder that I like when I want a very natural, luminous finish. If I don't want to disturb the actual finish of my foundation, I will use this, and it does a great job. It also works really well at setting under eye concealer. I like this powder a lot, and it is suitable for oily skin. I find that it does help keep the oils at bay a little bit more than, say, the Chanel powder. I wish it didn't look as disgusting once you hit pan, but I would repurchase this. I like this a lot. Along the same lines, I have the Ambient Lighting Palette by Hourglass. Obviously, two of the shades in here are highlighters, but one of the shades, the shade that I use the most, called Dim, is actually a setting powder. I use this all over my face, and I love it. It's a beautiful powder. It just gives you a really soft, focused satin finish to the skin. The oil control is average, but it is a very nice powder. It's great to touch up with this throughout the day. It doesn't look cakey if you keep applying it over and over, and I'm a big fan of it, as you can see. Sometimes if I want a more luminous finish and it's fall or winter time when I'm not so oily, I actually dip my brush into all three of these shades all together, and I use it to set my makeup. It makes me look like I'm a vampire or something, but in a good way. Another setting powder that I love for traveling and just for carrying around my makeup bag is the Bourjois Healthy Balance Powder. I have it in the shade number 53, and it's awesome. It's a very finely milled powder. It has a slight color payoff, and if I have a really long day and I need to touch up, I will just use that powder because you can layer it on top of things. You can keep using it throughout the evening without it looking cakey. It kind of builds on itself really nicely. I also love the fact that it's really thin and compact, so it's just the perfect powder to have in your makeup bag. And the last two products are powder foundations. If I'm doing my makeup in the morning and I have a really long day ahead and I just want my makeup to last all day with as little touch-up as possible, and if I want medium to full coverage that lasts, I will use a powder foundation to set my makeup. And the two that I'm using right now are, I have one by GUERLAIN, and this is the GUERLAIN Lingerie de Peau Powder Foundation. I have this in the shade number 2, Beige Clair. And it is an absolutely beautiful powder. This is the most finely milled powder foundation that I've ever tried. It does have a faint, like a soapy floral scent, so if you are very sensitive to scents, keep that in mind. But it's a beautiful powder. I bought this when Mary Greenwell mentioned it in a video a long time ago, and I didn't hesitate. I bought it. I had to have it. This is expensive. This is $66. I got it during a VIB sale at Sephora, so it wasn't as bad, but it's still a very expensive powder, very luxurious, and this is beautiful. It has a lot of coverage, and it just gives you a very natural satin finish to your skin. If you want more luminosity, you can always follow that up with a mist like MAC Fix Plus or something like that. The only reason I personally would not repurchase this is because it doesn't do anything in terms of oil control when my skin is really oily. So if you have more normal skin, even dry skin, or if your skin just doesn't get that oily and you want a powder foundation to try, definitely give GUERLAIN Lingerie de Peau a try. It doesn't enhance dry patches or anything like that. It's just a beautiful powder. It's like a fancier, better version of MAC Studio Fix powder, which is a powder that I used for years. I used to use that all the time when I was younger. And then the last foundation is the Too Faced Cocoa Powder Foundation. I am using this in the shade Light right now, and this is what it looks like. It comes with a sponge, which is really annoying. I have tried applying it just with a sponge once, just to test it out, and I was not a fan. But I definitely like applying this with a kabuki brush. And this has the best oil control out of all the powders that I've talked about. This was my go-to powder in the summertime. If I had a long day ahead and I just wanted my makeup to last, this is what I used to set my makeup, and I'm very happy with it. It also doesn't oxidize, so that's always a plus. I will definitely repurchase this because it's a great powder. And this also smells like cocoa. So it smells like the Chocolate Soleil bronzer, if you're familiar with that. Those are all the face powders that I own. If you have any questions about any of the products in particular, please feel free to put it below and I will answer your question. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye.